The rain drummed against the windows of Martinez's corner store as 8-year-old Zara pressed her face against the glass door. Her breath fogged up the surface as she watched people hurry past with umbrellas, their shoes splashing through puddles on the sidewalk. She had been standing there for almost an hour, her stomach making quiet, growling sounds that she tried to ignore. Inside the store, Carlos Martinez noticed the little girl. She came by every day after school, sometimes buying a small bag of chips or a candy bar with crumpled dollar bills she pulled from her backpack pocket. Today was different, though. She just stood there, staring out at the storm, her thin jacket clearly not enough to keep her warm. Carlos was 55 years old, with graying hair and kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. What people in the neighborhood didn't know was that he was worth over $2 billion. 20 years ago, he had started a small tech company in his garage. After selling it to a major corporation, he could have lived anywhere in the world. Instead, he chose to buy this small corner store in East Oakland, wanting to stay connected to the community where he grew up. He watched Zara for a few more minutes, then walked over to unlock the door. "Hey there, sweetheart. You waiting for someone?" Zara looked up at him with big brown eyes that seemed too serious for someone her age. "My mom's working late again. She said to wait here until the rain stops." Her voice was small but steady. "Well, you can't wait out there in this weather. Come on in." Carlos stepped aside to let her enter. "You hungry? I've got some soup heating up in the back." Zara hesitated at the doorway. Her mother had always told her not to take things from strangers, but Mr. Martinez wasn't really a stranger anymore. She had been coming to his store for months, and he was always kind to her. Plus, the warm air from inside felt so good against her cold cheeks. "I don't have money for soup," she said honestly, looking down at her worn sneakers. "Who said anything about money?" Carlos smiled. "Sometimes we all need a little help from our neighbors." As Zara stepped inside, Carlos noticed more details about her. Her school uniform was clean but had been mended in several places. Her backpack was old and patched with duct tape. Despite this, she carried herself with dignity, her back straight and her head held high. "Take a seat over there by the heater," Carlos pointed to a small chair near the back of the store. "I'll get you that soup." While Carlos went to the back room, Zara looked around the store with new eyes. She had always thought it was just a regular corner store, but now she noticed things differently. The shelves were always perfectly stocked. The floor was spotless. There were fresh flowers near the register that seemed expensive. Even the soup he was bringing smelled better than anything she usually ate. "Here you go," Carlos said, returning with a steaming bowl of chicken noodle soup and some crackers. "My wife's recipe. She used to make this for our kids when they were about your age." Zara accepted the bowl gratefully, wrapping her small hands around it to warm them. "Where are your kids now?" "All grown up and living their own lives," Carlos said, settling into the chair behind the register. "My daughter Elena is a doctor in Chicago. My son Miguel is a teacher in Los Angeles. They visit when they can, but this old man gets pretty lonely sometimes." Something in his voice made Zara look up from her soup. "I get lonely too. My mom works 3 jobs, so she's always tired when she comes home. And I never had a dad." The words hung in the air between them. Carlos felt something tug at his heart. He had always wanted to do more for the kids in his neighborhood, but he also knew that throwing money at problems wasn't always the answer. Real change happened through relationships, through showing up day after day. "Tell me about school," Carlos said, changing the subject to something lighter. "What's your favorite subject?" Zara's face lit up for the first time. "Math. I really like solving problems, and my teacher, Mrs. Johnson, says I'm good at it. She gives me extra worksheets sometimes because I finish the regular ones so fast." "That's wonderful. Math is very important. You can do anything with good math skills." As they talked, Zara finished her soup and crackers. Outside, the rain continued to pour, but inside the warm store, she felt safe and comfortable. Carlos found himself genuinely enjoying their conversation. Zara was smart and curious, asking thoughtful questions about everything from how cash registers worked to why some people had more money than others. "Mr. Martinez," Zara said suddenly, her voice becoming quiet again. "Can I ask you something?" "Of course, sweetheart." "What's it like having a dad? I mean, when you were little." Carlos paused, choosing his words carefully. "Well, my father worked very hard to take care of our family. He taught me about responsibility and treating people with respect. He showed me that it doesn't matter where you come from or how much money you have. What matters is how you treat other people and whether you try to make the world a little better." "I wish I had someone to teach me things like that," Zara said, stirring the last bit of soup with her spoon. "You know what? I think you're already learning those things on your own. Look how polite you are, how hard you work in school. Your mom is doing a great job raising you." Zara smiled, but Carlos could see the sadness still in her eyes. At that moment, he made a decision that would change both of their lives forever. "Zara, how would you like to help me in the store sometimes? I could pay you a little bit and maybe teach you about running a business. You could do your homework here after school if you want." Her eyes went wide. "Really? You would let me do that?" "Only if your mom says it's okay. We'd have to ask her permission first." Just then, the door chimed as someone rushed in from the rain. A young woman in scrubs looked around frantically until she spotted Zara. "There you are! I was so worried when you weren't at the apartment." The woman hurried over, and Carlos could see where Zara got her beautiful eyes. "You must be Zara's mother," Carlos said, standing up. "I'm Carlos Martinez. I hope you don't mind that I invited her inside. She was waiting in the rain." "I'm Sarah Williams. Thank you so much for looking after her." Sarah's voice was tired but grateful. "I got held up at the hospital. My shift was supposed to end at 6, but we had an emergency." "You're a nurse?" Carlos asked. "Nursing assistant. I also clean offices at night and work weekends at a daycare," Sarah explained, unconsciously straightening Zara's collar. "We managed just fine, though." Carlos could hear the pride in her voice, even through the exhaustion. This was a woman who was doing everything she could to take care of her daughter. "Mom, Mr. Martinez offered me a job helping in the store after school. Can I do it, please?" Zara looked up at her mother with hopeful eyes. Sarah looked uncertain. "Oh, honey, I don't know. Mr. Martinez probably has enough help already." "Actually, I could really use the assistance," Carlos said. "Zara seems very responsible and smart. She could help organize inventory, maybe learn to use the cash register. It would just be a few hours after school, and she could do her homework here too." Sarah studied Carlos's face. She had been bringing Zara to this store for months, and he had always been kind to them. Still, as a single mother, she had learned to be careful about who she trusted with her daughter. "What kind of pay are we talking about?" Sarah asked directly. "Minimum wage, plus I'd provide dinner on the days she works. And if she needs help with homework, I used to be pretty good at math and science." Sarah looked down at Zara, who was practically bouncing with excitement. Money was always tight, and having somewhere safe for Zara to go after school would be a huge help. Plus, the idea of someone helping with homework was appealing, since Sarah often got home too tired to concentrate on math problems. "Can we try it for a week and see how it goes?" Sarah asked. "Absolutely. We can start tomorrow if Zara wants." As the rain finally began to slow down, Sarah and Zara prepared to leave. Zara ran back to Carlos before going out the door. "Thank you for the soup, Mr. Martinez, and for letting me work here. I promise I'll do a really good job." "I know you will, sweetheart. I'll see you tomorrow after school." After they left, Carlos stood in his empty store, thinking about the conversation. He had built an empire worth billions of dollars, But somehow this simple interaction with a 8-year-old girl felt more meaningful than any business deal he had ever made. He pulled out his phone and called his daughter Elena in Chicago. "Hey, Dad, how are you?" Elena's voice was cheerful, but rushed. "I'm good, mija. Listen, I wanted to tell you about this little girl who comes to the store." As Carlos told Elena about Zara, he found himself getting excited about the possibilities. Maybe this was exactly what he had been looking for without even knowing it. A chance to make a real difference in someone's life, not through charity or donations, but through genuine relationship and care. Outside, the rain had stopped completely, and the evening sun was breaking through the clouds. Carlos began planning how he could help Zara develop her love for math, maybe even start saving money for her college education. But he would have to be careful about it. He sensed that Sarah was proud and independent, and he didn't want to overstep boundaries. For the first time in years, Carlos Martinez, billionaire businessman, felt truly excited about going to work the next day, not because of profit margins or investment opportunities, but because a little girl with big dreams was going to help him organize his store shelves. As he locked up for the night, Carlos smiled to himself. Sometimes the most important business partnerships began with a simple bowl of soup shared on a rainy day. 3 weeks had passed since Zara started working at Martinez Corner Store, and the arrangement had become the highlight of both her and Carlos's days. Every afternoon at 3:30 she would burst through the door with her backpack bouncing, ready to tackle whatever tasks Carlos had planned for her. "Mr. Martinez, I got an A+ on my math test," Zara announced as she entered the store on a sunny Friday afternoon. She waved the paper in the air like a flag. Carlos looked up from where he was restocking the refrigerated section and broke into a huge smile. "That's fantastic. Let me see that test." Zara handed over the paper proudly. Carlos studied it carefully, noting not just the grade but the complexity of the problems she had solved correctly. "These are multiplication and division problems that some 5th graders struggle with. You really are gifted at this, Zara. Mrs. Johnson said I might be ready for advanced math next year, but I don't know if my school has those classes." Zara's excitement dimmed a little. Carlos made a mental note to look into educational opportunities for gifted students in the area. Over the past 3 weeks, he had been quietly researching ways to support Zara's education without making Sarah feel uncomfortable about accepting help. "Well, let's celebrate this achievement first," Carlos said. "How about we work on inventory today, and I'll teach you how to use the calculator system for tracking costs and profits." Zara's eyes lit up again. She loved when Carlos taught her about business concepts. Yesterday, he had explained profit margins using candy bar sales as examples, and she had caught on so quickly that he had to challenge her with more complex scenarios. As they worked together, organizing the store shelves, Zara chattered about her day at school. Carlos found himself treasuring these conversations. She had opinions about everything from why the school cafeteria should offer healthier options to how the city could fix the pothole problem on her street. "Mr. Martinez," Zara said as she carefully arranged boxes of cereal by expiration date, "can I ask you something personal?" "Of course, sweetheart. How did you get so smart about business? Did you go to college?" Carlos paused in his work. Over the weeks, Zara had asked him various questions about his life, and he had been honest about most things. He had told her about growing up in a similar neighborhood, about working hard in school, and about starting his own business. But he hadn't told her about the billions of dollars or the true extent of his success. "I did go to college, yes. I studied computer science and business. But you know what the most important thing was?" "What?" "I never stopped learning. Even now, I read books about new ideas and technologies, and I listen to smart people like you who ask good questions." Zara beamed at the compliment. "My mom says education is the key to everything. She didn't get to finish college because she had me when she was young, but she's always telling me to study hard. Your mom is very wise, and very strong, too. Sometimes I worry about her, though, Zara said, her voice becoming quieter. She works so much, and she gets really tired. Last night she fell asleep at the kitchen table while helping me with homework. Carlos felt a familiar tug at his heart. Sarah came by the store every evening to pick up Zara, and he could see the exhaustion in her face. She was always polite and grateful. But he could tell she was pushing herself to the limit trying to provide for her daughter. Zara, has your mom mentioned anything about maybe wanting a different job? Something with better hours? She talks about finishing nursing school someday. She says if she could become a real nurse instead of just an assistant, she could work one job instead of 3. But nursing school costs a lot of money, and she doesn't have time to go to classes. Carlos nodded thoughtfully. An idea was forming in his mind, but he would need to approach it very carefully. The door chimed, and Sarah walked in looking particularly worn out. Her scrubs were wrinkled, and there were dark circles under her eyes. "Hey, baby," she said to Zara. "Ready to go home?" "Mom, look at my math test." Zara rushed over with the paper. Sarah's face transformed as she looked at the grade. "An A+. Oh, honey, I'm so proud of you." She hugged Zara tightly. "Mrs. Johnson says I might be ready for advanced classes," Zara explained excitedly. "That's wonderful, baby." Sarah's smile was genuine, but Carlos could see the worry behind it. He knew she was probably thinking about whether their current school could provide those advanced classes or whether they might need to consider other options that could cost money they didn't have. "Sarah, could I speak with you for a moment while Zara finishes organizing the candy display?" Carlos asked. Sarah looked a little nervous, but nodded. They walked to the front of the store while Zara busied herself arranging chocolate bars by size. "Is everything okay? Has Zara been causing any trouble?" Sarah asked quickly. "Oh, no. Nothing like that. She's been wonderful. Actually, I wanted to talk to you about something else entirely." Carlos chose his words carefully. "I've been thinking about expanding my business operations, maybe adding some community services to the store. I'm looking for someone with medical training to help develop a small clinic or health services area." Sarah looked puzzled. "I'm not sure I understand. What I'm thinking is having someone here a few hours a day who could check blood pressure, give basic health advice, maybe help people figure out when they need to see a doctor versus when they can handle something with over-the-counter medicine. Someone with nursing background would be perfect for this." "That sounds like a great idea for the community, but I'm not a full nurse, just an assistant." "But you could be, with the right support and training. What if I offered you a position here that would give you flexible hours and help pay for you to go back to school for your nursing degree?" Sarah's eyes widened. "Mr. Martinez, that's incredibly generous, but I couldn't accept something like that. It's too much." "Think of it as a business investment. I need someone reliable and caring to help develop this health services component. You need flexible work and education funding. It could benefit both of us." "But you hardly know me. Why would you take a risk like that?" Carlos looked over at Zara, who was now humming to herself as she worked. "Because in these past few weeks I've watched how you've raised that little girl. Anyone who can raise someone that intelligent, kind, and hardworking while juggling 3 jobs is someone I want on my team." Sarah was quiet for a long moment, clearly thinking hard. What exactly would this job involve? 20 hours a week here at the store, helping customers with basic health questions and organizing the clinic space. The rest of your time could be dedicated to nursing school. I'd pay for tuition and books, plus a salary that equals what you're making now with all 3 jobs. This is too good to be true. What's the catch? Carlos smiled. The catch is that you'd have to put up with me teaching Zara advanced math concepts, and she might start asking you questions about business that you can't answer. Despite her exhaustion, Sarah laughed. She's already doing that. Mom, what are you guys talking about? Zara called from across the store. Mr. Martinez has offered Mommy a job that would let me go back to school to become a real nurse, Sarah called back. Zara dropped the candy bar she was holding and rushed over. Really? You could stop working those other jobs that make you so tired? We're still talking about it, baby. But this would be amazing. Mr. Martinez is the best boss ever and you'd be here when I am, so we could spend more time together. Zara looked between the two adults with excitement. Zara makes a good point, Carlos said. You'd be here during her after-school hours, so you could see how she's doing with her homework and maybe even help me teach her about business. Sarah looked at her daughter's hopeful face, then back at Carlos. She had learned to be suspicious of offers that seemed too good to be true. But everything about her interactions with Carlos over the past few weeks had been genuine and kind. Could I have the weekend to think about it? She asked. Of course. Take all the time you need. As they prepared to leave, Zara ran back to Carlos. Mr. Martinez, if my mom takes this job, does that mean you'll be around more? More like a... She paused, searching for the right word. Like a friend to both of you? I hope so, sweetheart. I was thinking more like family, Zara said quietly. I know you're not my real dad or anything, but you kind of feel like what I think a dad would feel like. Carlos knelt down to Zara's level, his heart swelling with emotion. You know what, Zara? You feel like family to me too. That evening, after Sarah and Zara had left, Carlos called his daughter Elena again. Dad, you sound different. Happy, Elena said after he had updated her on the conversation with Sarah. I am happy, mija. For the first time in years, I feel like I'm doing something that really matters. What does this Sarah woman think about your offer? It's pretty generous. She's being cautious, which I respect. She doesn't know about the money, Elena. As far as she knows, I'm just a corner store owner who's doing well enough to expand his business. Are you going to tell her eventually? Carlos was quiet for a moment. Maybe someday. But right now, I like that they care about me for who I am, not what I have. When Zara said I felt like family today, that meant more to me than any business achievement I've ever had. Dad, I think this is really good for you. You've been lonely since Mom passed away, even though you won't admit it. And it sounds like you're making a real difference in their lives. I hope so. This little girl, Elena, she's special. She reminds me of you when you were that age, so curious and determined. I want to help her reach her potential. Just be careful not to overwhelm them with too much too fast. It sounds like they're proud people. You're right. I'm trying to find the balance between helping and respecting their independence. Meanwhile, across town in their small apartment, Sarah was tucking Zara into bed while her mind raced with thoughts about Carlos's offer. Mom, are you going to take the job? Zara asked as Sarah pulled the covers up to her chin. I don't know yet, baby. It's a big decision. What are you worried about? Sarah sat on the edge of the bed. Well, what if I'm not good enough? What if I fail at nursing school again? And what if accepting help like this means we owe Mr. Martinez more than we can give back? Mom, you wouldn't fail at nursing school. You're the smartest person I know. And Mr. Martinez doesn't seem like the kind of person who would want us to owe him anything. He just seems like he wants to help. When did you get so wise? Sarah asked, smoothing Zara's hair. I learned it from you. You always tell me to trust my instincts about people, and my instincts say Mr. Martinez is good people. That night, Sarah lay awake thinking about the conversation. She had been working herself to exhaustion for years, always just barely keeping their heads above water financially. This offer could change everything for both her and Zara, but it also scared her. She had learned to depend only on herself, and accepting this level of help meant trusting someone else with their future. By Sunday evening, Sarah had made her decision. She walked into Martinez's corner store with Zara on Monday afternoon and found Carlos arranging a display of fresh produce. Mr. Martinez, she said, her voice steady and determined. I'd like to accept your offer with one condition. What's that? I pay you back for the nursing school tuition once I graduate and start working as a nurse. I don't care if it takes me 10 years. Carlos smiled. Deal. But only if you accept one condition from me. What? That you let me be Zara's honorary grandfather because I think that's what this arrangement is really about. Zara let out a whoop of joy and ran to hug Carlos around the waist. Sarah felt tears welling up in her eyes as she watched her daughter embrace this man who had already become so important to both of them. I think that sounds perfect, Sarah said softly. As the three of them stood in the warm light of the corner store, surrounded by the organized shelves and the smell of fresh flowers that Carlos always kept near the register, something shifted into place. They weren't just making a business arrangement anymore. They were becoming a family in the truest sense of the word, bound not by blood but by choice, care, and the kind of love that shows up in soup shared on rainy days and math lessons that stretch into dreams of the future. 2 years had transformed everything about the corner store, the Williams family, and Carlos Martinez himself. What had started as a simple arrangement had blossomed into something none of them could have imagined. The store now featured a small but well-equipped health clinic in the back room, where Sarah worked as a certified nurse practitioner. She had accelerated through her nursing program with Carlos's support and finished her advanced degree ahead of schedule. The community had embraced the clinic, and people came from several blocks away to get basic health services at affordable prices. 10-year-old Zara had grown taller and even more confident. She now helped run the store's new tutoring program, teaching younger kids math and reading while Carlos worked with the teenagers on basic business skills. Her own academics had flourished beyond anyone's expectations. She was taking high school-level mathematics and had started learning basic computer programming from Carlos. On this particular Tuesday evening, the three of them sat in the back office reviewing the month's numbers for both the store and the clinic. Zara had become surprisingly good at reading financial statements, and Carlos enjoyed explaining business concepts to someone who asked such insightful questions. The clinic brought in 30% more revenue this month than last month, Zara announced, looking up from the computer screen where she had been entering data. That's wonderful, but remember, revenue isn't the same as profit, Carlos reminded her gently. Right, we have to subtract all the expenses first. Mom's salary, medical supplies, equipment maintenance, and the portion of rent allocated to the clinic space. Zara rattled off the categories like a seasoned accountant. Sarah shook her head in amazement. I can't believe she understands this stuff better than I do. She has a natural talent for it, Carlos said proudly. Zara, have you given any more thought to what you want to study when you get to college? I want to do something that combines business and helping people, like what you and Mom do here. Maybe healthcare administration or social entrepreneurship? Zara paused, then looked at Carlos with curiosity. But I've been wondering about something. What's that, sweetheart? How did you afford to set up this clinic and pay for Mom's school and everything? I mean, corner stores usually don't make that much money, do they? Carlos and Sarah exchanged glances. They had been expecting this conversation for months. Zara was too smart not to have noticed that their setup was unusual. You're right to be curious about that, Carlos said carefully. The truth is, I have some investments and savings that help support these projects. What kind of investments? Zara pressed. Sarah intervened gently. Zara, it's not really polite to ask people about their personal finances. It's okay, Carlos said. She deserves an honest answer. He took a deep breath. Before I bought this store, I started a technology company. When I sold it, I made enough money to last several lifetimes. I used some of that money to fund projects I believe in, like this clinic and your education. Zara's eyes widened. You mean you're rich? Like really rich? Yes, I am. But you work in a corner store every day. Why? Carlos smiled at her directness. Because money is just a tool, Zara. It can't buy you the things that really matter, like family, friendship, and the satisfaction of helping your community. This store, working with you and your mom, being part of your lives, that's what makes me happy. So, when you offered to help Mom with nursing school, you could have just paid for it without it being a big deal for you financially? That's right. Zara was quiet for a moment, processing this information. Are you going to keep running the store forever? As long as I'm healthy and it continues to serve the community, yes. Why? Because I want to learn everything about business from you, and maybe someday I could help you start more clinics in other neighborhoods that need them. Carlos felt his heart swell with pride and love. I think that's a wonderful goal, Zara. We could start planning that right now if you want. Over the next few weeks, their evening planning sessions took on a new dimension. Carlos began teaching Zara about large-scale business operations, nonprofit organizations, and community development. He also started introducing her to some of his contacts in the business world through video calls. Zara, I'd like you to meet my friend Dr. Patricia Chen, Carlos said one evening as they connected with a woman in San Francisco via laptop. She runs a network of community health centers across California. Hi, Zara. Carlos has told me so much about you. I hear you're interested in healthcare entrepreneurship. Zara nodded enthusiastically. I want to help create more places like our clinic, where people can get good health care even if they don't have a lot of money. That's exactly what we do. Have you thought about what makes a successful community health center? As Zara discussed her ideas with Dr. Chen, Carlos watched with amazement. This little girl who had once stood outside his store in the rain was now confidently talking with accomplished professionals about complex social issues. She's remarkable, Dr. Chen told Carlos privately after Zara had gone to help her mother close up the clinic. Most adults don't grasp these concepts as quickly as she does. She keeps surprising all of us, Carlos agreed. I'm thinking about creating a scholarship fund for kids like her, maybe partnering with some universities to identify gifted students from underserved communities. I'd love to help with something like that. Send me your ideas. After they ended the call, Carlos found Zara and Sarah organizing medical supplies in the clinic. How would you both feel about taking a trip to San Francisco next month? He asked. Dr. Chen invited us to visit her health centers, and I thought it might be educational for Zara. Really? We could see how other clinics work? Zara's excitement was infectious. It would be a great learning experience, Sarah agreed. But Carlos, you don't need to pay for trips for us. You've already done so much. Sarah, I want to be very clear about something, Carlos said seriously. You and Zara aren't charity cases to me. You're family, and families support each other's dreams and goals. This trip would benefit all of us because it would help us plan our expansion better. Sarah had grown more comfortable with accepting Carlos's help over the years, especially as she had been able to contribute more as a full partner in their business operations. The clinic was bringing in enough revenue to pay her full salary and contribute significantly to the store's overhead costs. Plus, Zara added, if we're going to open more clinics, we need to do research first. That's just good business planning, right? Right. Carlos laughed. When did you get so good at convincing adults to do what you want? I learned from watching you convince Mom to take that job 2 years ago, Zara said with a grin. The trip to San Francisco turned out to be transformative for all of them. They visited 5 different community health centers, met with local officials about healthcare access, and attended a conference on social entrepreneurship. Zara took extensive notes and asked questions that impressed everyone they met. On their last evening there, as they sat in their hotel restaurant overlooking the bay, Zara made an announcement. I've decided what I want to do with my life, she said solemnly. What's that, baby? Sarah asked. I want to create a model for community health and education centers that can be replicated anywhere. Not just clinics, but places that also provide tutoring, job training, business development support, and financial literacy programs. Kind of like what we've built at the store, but bigger and more organized. Carlos nearly choked on his water. Zara, that's an incredibly sophisticated vision. Most people with business degrees don't think in terms of comprehensive community development. Well, I've had a good teacher, she said, smiling at him, and I've seen how much difference it makes when someone believes in you and gives you opportunities. I want to create systems that do that for lots of people. That's going to require a lot of education and experience, Sarah pointed out gently. I know. I figure I'll need to study business, public health, education policy, and probably economics too. And I'll need to work in different types of organizations to understand how they operate. Carlos was quiet for a moment, then reached into his briefcase and pulled out a folder. I was planning to wait until your 18th birthday to give you this, but I think now might be the right time. He handed Zara an official-looking document. She read it carefully, her eyes growing wider with each line. This is a trust fund, she said slowly, with enough money to pay for any college I want to attend, plus graduate school, plus seed funding for starting my own organization. Carlos, Sarah breathed, this is too much. We can't accept something like this. Yes, you can, Carlos said firmly. And you will, because Zara is going to change the world, and she's going to need resources to do it. Consider it an investment in our future partnership. Zara looked up from the document with tears in her eyes. Why are you doing all this for us? Because 2 years ago, a little girl stood outside my store and said she needed a dad. I needed a family. We found each other, and you've both made my life infinitely richer. Everything I'm giving you is nothing compared to what you've given me. What have we given you? Sarah asked softly. Purpose, joy, a reason to get up every morning that has nothing to do with profit margins or stock prices. You've taught me what wealth really means. Zara stood up from her chair and walked around the table to hug Carlos tightly. I love you, Grandpa Carlos. I love you too, mi nieta. Sarah wiped away tears as she watched her daughter embrace the man who had become the father figure she had always needed, and the grandfather Carlos had always wanted to be. 5 years later, Zara graduated as valedictorian from Stanford University with degrees in business and public policy. Her graduation speech was about the power of community investment and the importance of creating opportunities for others. In the audience, Carlos and Sarah sat with Elena and Miguel Martinez, who had flown in from Chicago and Los Angeles to celebrate their honorary niece's achievement. She's going to Harvard for her master's degree, Carlos told his biological children proudly. Then she's planning to work for a few different nonprofits to gain experience before we launch the Williams Martinez Foundation for Community Development. The Williams Martinez Foundation? Elena asked. She insisted on including my name, Carlos explained. Said partners should have equal billing. At the reception after graduation, Zara approached the microphone for an impromptu speech. I want to thank my family, she began, looking directly at Carlos and Sarah. 8 years ago, I was a little girl who thought she needed a dad. What I actually needed was someone who would believe in my potential and give me opportunities to grow. Carlos Martinez didn't just give me a job in his store. He gave me a vision of what was possible and the tools to make it happen. She paused, her voice becoming emotional. But more than that, he taught me that real wealth isn't measured in dollars. It's measured in the lives you touch, the communities you strengthen, and the love you share. Today, I'm not just graduating from college. I'm graduating into a lifelong partnership with my family to create opportunities for other kids who are standing outside stores in the rain, wondering if anyone will notice them and believe in their dreams. The applause was thunderous. But Carlos barely heard it. He was thinking about that rainy evening 8 years ago when a little girl had pressed her face against his store window and changed his life forever. She had said she needed a dad, but the truth was, they had all needed each other. As they walked back to the hotel that evening, 3 generations of their chosen family together, Carlos felt the deep satisfaction of a life well lived. His billions of dollars had bought him many things over the years, but the most precious thing he owned couldn't be purchased at any price. The love and respect of a little girl who had grown into an extraordinary young woman, and the joy of knowing that their partnership would continue to create ripples of positive change for generations to come. "Ready to change the world, partner?" he asked Zara as they reached the hotel. "Ready, Grandpa. Let's get started." And they did.